Sometimes the people who walk into your life with grease on their hands and silence in their eyes are the ones carrying entire lifetimes behind them. And sometimes the broken down car on the side of a rural road isn't just a car. It's a key, a test, a door to something no one saw coming. Before we go further, if stories of second chances, secret identities, and unexpected love stirs something in your heart, please consider subscribing. We bring you cinematic stories that dig deep, right where the soul remembers. Now, let's begin. The town of Rivenfield, nestled between two lazy hills and a gas station that hadn't updated its prices in a decade, wasn't known for much. Not for wealth, not for noise, just slow mornings and honest work. And that suited Daniel Reed just fine. He wasn't here to be noticed. He was here to heal. Daniel, 38, lived in a weather-beaten trailer park beside an old barn he rented for $75 a month. His hands were always stained with motor oil. His hair was cut at home by his 8-year-old daughter Gracie, and his voice rarely rose above a quiet hum. After losing his wife 2 winters ago to a rare illness no one saw coming, Daniel had given up on plans, on dreams, even on the idea that life might get better. He focused on fixing engines, helping the elderly with odd jobs, and keeping Gracie safe, fed, and laughing. Mostly, he succeeded at 2 out of 3. It was Gracie who spotted the Mustang. They were on their usual Saturday drive, a trip to the farmer's market followed by skipping rocks at the creek. When the girl pointed her peanut butter smeared finger at a sleek, midnight blue car stopped on the shoulder. "Daddy, that car is too shiny to be from around here." Daniel slowed, scanning the scene. The woman standing beside the car didn't match the car either. She wore jeans, but they were the expensive kind, the kind that looked effortless and cost more than his rent. Her boots were polished, her posture controlled, but her eyes, they held a storm. He pulled over. Gracie peeked from the window. "Looks like she needs help." "Maybe," Daniel said, already grabbing his tool roll. The woman said her name was Juliet. Just Juliet. Something about the way she said it felt both practiced and evasive. She explained that the car had just died. No warning. No lights. Daniel opened the hood. The problem was simple. A dislodged battery cable. Easy to miss if you weren't looking, easy to fake if you knew what you were doing. He didn't say anything about that. As he worked, Gracie offered Juliet a half-melted lollipop. Juliet knelt down and took it, laughing. "This is the best thing that's happened to me today." Gracie beamed. Daniel tightened the final bolt. "Try it now." The engine purred to life. Juliet stood, her expression unreadable. "You sure you don't want anything for the help?" Daniel shook his head. "Just try to keep it on the road." But she didn't leave. Not right away. Instead, she asked if there was somewhere nearby she could grab coffee. Daniel pointed her to the diner. "I'll walk," she said. "Need the air." Gracie watched her go, wide-eyed. Juliet came back the next morning. Daniel was surprised to see her. She claimed she'd left something behind, but when he asked what, she hesitated. "Maybe just my manners." She handed him a warm paper bag, biscuits, eggs, and coffee for 2. She didn't stay long, just long enough to ask Gracie about her favorite colors, and to pet the neighbor's dog who had wandered into their yard. Then she left, but she came back again. And again, always with something small. Groceries she accidentally overbought, books for Gracie, spare tools she claimed she didn't need. Daniel never asked why, and she never told him. Their rhythm became quiet, but steady. Juliet would appear, sometimes in fancy clothes, sometimes in jeans and a ball cap. She never gave details. She always asked questions about engines, about Gracie's school, about the orchard Daniel worked part-time. In return, Daniel asked almost nothing. That was his way. And perhaps that's what made her stay longer each time. Then came the storm. It rolled in fast. A spring squall with fierce winds and a crackling sky. Power lines down. Roads flooded. Daniel had barely managed to lock up the barn when headlights swept across the drive. Juliet, she looked shaken. Rain in her eyes. Hair wild. She stepped from the car before he could reach her. I didn't know where else to go. Daniel opened the trailer door. Gracie made cocoa. Juliet dried off. They ate dinner, soup from a can and toast. And when the lights flickered, they lit candles. Gracie fell asleep first, curled on the couch with their old beagle at her feet. Juliet sat across from Daniel, silence between them. Then she asked it, "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" Daniel didn't blink. "No, just feel like I'm still figuring out how to live mine." She nodded, staring into the candlelight, her voice barely above a whisper. "I own a tech company." Daniel blinked. "I founded it when I was 24. Sold part of it at 30. It's valued at nearly $2 billion now." Silence. "I didn't lie to you. I just didn't know how to be that person here. Not when I saw how you lived. Not when I saw how she looked at you, like you built the world with your hands." Daniel didn't speak. He didn't need to, because something in his gaze made Juliet exhale. The storm passed. The next morning, the sun returned like a secret forgiven, but something had changed. Daniel walked her to the car. "Are you leaving?" She hesitated. "I don't want to." She stayed. Not forever. Not yet. But she rented a place near the town square. She kept coming back. She helped rebuild the school greenhouse. She fixed the diner's Wi-Fi. She laughed more. Gracie drew pictures of her. Daniel quietly began to make space. Then came the twist no one expected. A developer arrived in town, offering big money to buy up land, including the barn Daniel worked at and the lot his trailer sat on, promising jobs, tech, tourism. Juliet recognized the parent company. It was a subsidiary of her former firm. She was stunned, silent. Then she made a call. What happened next is still talked about in Rivenfield, because within a week, the deal fell through. The town council announced a new anonymous investor who bought the land instead, preserving its use for local farmers and mechanics. No one knew who, not officially, but Daniel found a check one evening, folded inside a copy of Gracie's latest drawing, now framed on their wall. No signature, just a note. "You gave us roots. Let me give you wings." And on the back of the note, a small drawing of a treehouse, the kind Gracie had always wanted. That was the beginning of something deeper. But one day, Juliet stopped answering. No calls, no texts. Days passed. Gracie cried herself to sleep. Daniel sat outside all night waiting. Then, weeks later, a package arrived. No return address. Inside was a harmonica, Gracie's name etched into the side, and a map with a single red X marked on a field just beyond the orchard. Daniel followed it. He found a wooden bench, freshly built, facing the sunrise, and on the back of the bench, carved carefully, "Wait for me here. I'm finding the last piece of myself. Then I'm coming home." He sat and waited. The early morning wind carried the scent of cedar, engine oil, and blooming lavender through the cracked windows of Caleb's old garage. The bench out front, once a quiet space for breathers between oil changes, now held the weight of a truth Caleb couldn't unsee. Violet didn't just have a classic Mustang with a blown gasket. She had a billion-dollar company, a hidden past, and, for reasons he still didn't fully grasp, a soft spot for him. Since the night Violet disappeared with only a cryptic note tucked under the windshield wiper, days had stretched like taffy. Caleb had kept busy, fixing carburetors, chasing invoices, packing lunches for his son, Jude. But he kept glancing at the road, listening for the unmistakable rumble of that Mustang engine. It never came. He hadn't told Jude the whole truth, just that Violet had to leave for a while. The boy hadn't said much, but Caleb had caught him staring at the photo on the fridge. The one Jude secretly snapped of the three of them, laughing at the county fair, cotton candy smeared across Violet's nose. It hadn't occurred to Caleb that Jude had printed it and taped it there himself. Until now, 1 week turned into 2, then 3, and just when Caleb began to accept that maybe Violet had been a moment, not a future, he found a letter slid under the garage door. The paper was thick, textured, with an embossed seal he didn't recognize. Inside was a single sentence in elegant handwriting. "I'll see you at sunrise. Bring the boy. Trust me." It wasn't signed, but it didn't need to be. Caleb packed 2 flasks of coffee, a thermos of hot cocoa, and half a loaf of banana bread Jude insisted they bring. They drove out before the sky had turned, before the town stirred, past a river bend, past the miller's barn, until they reached a ridge that overlooked their small town. There she stood, Violet, in worn jeans, a black hoodie, her hair pulled back, no makeup, no guards, just her, and beside her, the Mustang gleaming under the first gold ribbon of sun. Caleb stepped out slowly. Jude jumped from the truck, racing toward her. She knelt to meet him. "You brought banana bread," she whispered, smiling through the tears she wasn't trying to hide. "I missed you," Jude said. "Me too, little man. Me too." Caleb stood back, watching, wanting. Then she turned to him. "There's something you need to know." She led them to the edge of the overlook. Below, the sleepy town sprawled out in soft pastels. Violet reached into her coat and pulled out a folded document. "This town," she said quietly, "is about to be bought. Entire blocks. Developers want to bulldoze half of Main Street, put up luxury condos, strip away what makes it this." Caleb swallowed. "And what does that have to do with you?" She turned to him, her voice steady. "Because they offered to sell it to me first." Caleb blinked. "What?" "I can buy the town. Or let it fall." I needed time to decide. Jude looked between them. "Are you going to save it?" Violet looked at Caleb. I didn't want to make that choice alone. They sat on the bench, the sky lightening around them, the town slowly coming to life below. "This place," Violet said, "it's not just where I ran when life was too loud. It's where I remembered who I was. Because of you, and Jude, and your stupid, perfect banana bread." Caleb laughed, a choke sound that felt like a door swinging open. "So what now?" She handed him the deed. "You decide. With me." The next month moved like wildfire wrapped in grace. Violet didn't just buy the land. She opened trust funds for small business owners, restored the old theater, turned the gas station into a library with a garage-style lift door that Jude loved to press. And as for the garage, Caleb's garage, she renamed it Jude and Dad's Honest Repairs. She had the sign made by a local artist, hung it herself. One Saturday, Violet stood under the apple tree behind Caleb's house, a piece of paper in her hand. Jude was off drawing blueprints for a treehouse. Caleb looked at her. "It's a partnership agreement," she said. "Business? Life." He took the paper. It wasn't legalese. It wasn't financial. It was a handwritten promise. "I bring the engines. You bring the heart. We both bring the grit." He took her hand. And just like that, a struggling single dad, a guarded billionaire, and a wide-eyed boy who believed banana bread could save the world built a family. Because sometimes the real engines worth fixing are the ones inside us. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell us where you're watching from. And remember, second chances don't always knock. Sometimes they drive up in a Mustang with a busted headlight and change your whole life. We'll see you in the next story.